What's going on, everyone? Kyle Yates here of the FantasyPros Football Podcast. Thanks for joining us. As always, you can find our brand new content every week at youtube.com/fantasypros, as well as on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow while you're there. Let's dive in, because today I'm taking a look at my top 10 deep league stashes for 2021. If you were to sit down and do a YouTube search for any of sleepers, breakouts, busts for fantasy football in 2021, you might find hundreds of different results. However, there's not a ton of content out there for people that play in the 14-plus team leagues. First off, you all are crazy. I played in my first 14-team league last year, and it was pure and utter chaos. I was not prepared for how different the draft was and how quickly the depth dried up. I went into the league with the incorrect mindset, and I needed a valuable resource that would point out some depth options that I could scoop up in the later rounds. That is the purpose of this video. For the fantasy managers that play in 12-team leagues or fewer, these players most likely aren't worth taking the shot on. However, if you're in a deep league and you need some players that could break out and serve as valuable rotation options for your lineup, this is the video for you. Let's take a look at some players that are worth selecting when you're on the clock late. Number 10, Zach Wilson, quarterback, New York Jets. Wilson has the draft capital to his name, and he's got a pretty solid receiving core surrounding him, but we need to see how he adjusts to the NFL game before we feel completely confident in rolling him into our starting lineups. He's worth drafting as a late pick in deeper superflex leagues to see if he can adjust to the NFL game quicker than expected. If he does, we know he has the arm talent and mobility to be a factor for fantasy football. Number 9, Mac Jones, quarterback, New England Patriots. The Patriots drafted Jones in the first round, and he's about as different from Cam Newton as you can possibly find. While he does fit what Josh McDaniels has found success with in the past, he might not be ready to step on the field and dominate right away. He's going to be given a heavy dose of reality as soon as he steps onto the field and discovers that the receiving core he's playing with in the NFL isn't as talented as what he had at Alabama. Jones is the type of quarterback that can be great if the surrounding situation is perfect, and that's not exactly the case here in New England in 2021. He's going to have to sit behind Newton to start the year, so drafting him as anything more than a deep bench stash in Superflex leagues probably isn't a smart move. However, in these deeper leagues, sometimes you just need to hold on to someone at the bottom of your bench because of how bare the waiver wire can be. Jones can make an impact for fantasy football, even if it isn't the most likely outcome. Number 8, Salvon Ahmed, running back, Miami Dolphins. Myles Gaskin appears to have this starting job locked down, but that doesn't mean that Ahmed still can't be a valuable fantasy asset. Especially in deeper leagues, you need to get ahead of the waiver wire with how competitive it is, and Ahmed does come with tremendous upside if something were to happen to Gaskin. Ahmed will see work in this offense as a change of pace to Gaskin too, which puts him into the bye-week starter conversation in these deeper leagues. Number 7, Larry Rountree III, running back, Los Angeles Chargers. Don't be shocked if you start to hear this name more and more as the season gets closer. Rountree certainly doesn't have the draft capital to his name as a 6th round pick, but there's absolutely a path for him to carve out a significant role in this offense. With players like Justin Jackson, who can't stay healthy, and Joshua Kelly, who proved very little last season, the starting running back role opposite of Eckler is absolutely up for grabs. Rountree impressed me on tape coming out of Missouri, and he could be a late-round steal if he does end up getting the opportunity in this dynamic Chargers offense. Keep an eye out for the name as we move into the preseason. Number 6, Samaje Perine, running back, Cincinnati Bengals. Looking across the fantasy landscape, there are certain backup running backs that get elevated due to their potential if something were to happen to the starter ahead of them. However, no one seems to be talking about Perine and his upside if we see Mixon deal with injury again in 2021. There's no one else on this depth chart that can step in and take over a significant workload. In what's projected to be a high-powered offense, Perine doesn't have to be ultra-efficient with his opportunity because scoring opportunities will be available on a weekly basis. I'm typically not a proponent of drafting insurance running backs, but if you do select Mixon early on in your draft, doubling back and snagging Perine with a late pick is a very smart move. Number 5, Byron Pringle, wide receiver, Kansas City Chiefs. One of the most intriguing position battles in all of fantasy football this year is the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver 3 spot. As of right now, Mecole Hardman appears to have the wide receiver 2 role locked down, but DeMarcus Robinson, Cornell Powell, and Pringle are all vying for a starting role in the league's best offense. At the time of recording, Pringle appears to have the inside track for this job, which immediately puts him on the redraft radar. His ECR and ADP are laughably low, which means that you can get him extremely late even in a 16-team league. The upside is through the roof with his opportunity, and he's an auto draft for me when I'm on the clock later on in these types of leagues. Number 4, Devin Duvernay, wide receiver, Baltimore Ravens. One of my favorite deep sleepers this season is Devin Duvernay. Duvernay was very high in my 2020 wide receiver rankings coming into the NFL, and he showed off his speed and athleticism in his limited opportunities last year. Reports were glowing coming out of OTAs, and we could actually see this offense turn more towards the passing game in 2021. The offseason additions that Baltimore has made signifies to me that they may be more pass-happy of an offense this upcoming season, and Duvernay should make a strong case to be the starting slot receiver. He's not going to receive 10-plus targets per game, but he has the speed to take any pass to the house. Just simply keep an eye on him as we move into the preseason. You may end up liking him as much as I do when the time comes to draft. Number 3, Travis Fulgham, wide receiver, Philadelphia Eagles. Fulgham was a waiver wire darling for a good part of 2020, but the offense capsized quickly and Fulgham was no longer featured as a part of the game plan once Alshon Jeffrey came back. With a new coaching staff and a clear vacant role at outside receiver, Fulgham could step right back into fantasy relevance in 2021. We know what he can do for fantasy football when he gets the opportunity, and all indications are that he's going to be in the conversation for a starter in this offense. If that's the case, he's a steal at his ridiculously low ADP. Number 2, Gerald Everett, tight end, Seattle Seahawks. We've seen flashes from Everett when he's been the lone option at the tight end position in LA previously, but those instances were few and far between. He's now moved over into Seattle and is reuniting with Shane Waldron, who was with the Rams last season and is now the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. Everett knows this scheme, and he should easily take the lead role on this depth chart. He'll obviously take a clear backseat to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, but there could be some games where Everett is on the streaming radar. He's most likely not worth drafting in your typical redraft leagues unless we see something crazy in the preseason, but he's absolutely worth considering as your tight end 2 in a deep league. Number 1, Blake Jarwin, tight end, Dallas Cowboys. Last season, Jarwin was hyped up as a potential breakout candidate. Unfortunately, his injury early on in the season prevented us from getting to see what he could be in this offense. With that being said, he does have the contract to his name that should ensure him the starting role, and this team is going to put up points on the board. If you wait on tight end this season and want to double down with a couple of dart throws later on, Jarwin's a perfect player to take a shot on and see what he can become. Thank you for checking out the FantasyPros YouTube channel. Are you going to be taking a shot on any of these guys in your deep leagues? Let us know in the comment section below. And while you're there, hit the like and subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all of our future content.